So in about, 8 or 9 minutes' time, on a tap of the duty officer's stick, the Queen's grandchildren will come down the steps at the north end of Westminster Hall. They'll walk slowly into the centre of the room, where these officers of the Welsh Guards, just about to take up their position as the new watch, with the gentlemen-at-arms and the yeomen of the guard, will be waiting for them. Then, on another signal from that stick, the royal party will collectively lower their heads and mount vigil around the coffin of their grandmother, the Queen.
Well, what a moment that will be. I'm joined in the studio by the Sunday Times Royal Editor, Roya Nika, and by Paddy Harvison, who was former Communications Secretary to the then Prince Charles and Princes William and Harry for nearly 10 years up until 2013. Hello, good evening to both of you. It will be extraordinary, won't it?
This is an amazing moment. Like you said, we've never seen this before. It's historic, and I think it really speaks right to the heart of the importance of family to the Queen, the importance her grandchildren felt about that role, her as matriarch. I think there's going to be something exceptionally poignant and moving to see the 8 grandchildren, one of them is incredibly young, standing in vigil by her side for the first time. We've never seen it. It's an incredible sight.
And there's a big age gap, isn't there? The oldest, I think, is 44, the youngest is 14.
Yeah.
But they're a close bunch, aren't they?
They're a very close bunch. I think what was really interesting was the mood music we got from the palace this week when we were asking, will there be a grandchildren's vigil? And it was very much, this is up to them. It's what they want to decide. They've obviously been talking about it this week and felt they wanted to pay their respects by Granny's side, as their parents did last night.
And you've seen that, Paddy Harvison. You've seen it up close, haven't you? You've spent many years alongside the royal family and witnessed that relation, that interaction between the grandchildren and their grandmother.
Yes, I mean, I think in any family there's always a special relationship between grandchildren and grandparents, and I think it's the same for the royal family. But there's that other twist, of course, that there's the sort of formal side. So William and Harry served in the forces. Harry obviously in conflict, and so they were serving their grandmother, and yet they're also, there was a very personal, close relationship. So it's always that mix of the personal and the constitutional, which I find so striking. We've seen that this week, and we'll see it tonight.
And Prince Harry tonight will be wearing his military uniform, won't he?
He will. It's the first time we're going to have seen him in military uniform, I think, since 2020, when it was his last engagement as Captain General of the Royal Marines. There's been a lot said and written about whether Harry should or shouldn't, would or wouldn't be in uniform. I think the important thing to remember for this is that Harry, as you said, served 10 years in the armed forces. He did 2 tours of Afghanistan. He is a veteran, and his grandmother was his Colonel-in-Chief. It's important he's in uniform today.
And you know what that will mean to him?
So much. I mean, I remember he did an interview when he was in Afghanistan talking about what it meant to him to be out there as a soldier, serving his grandmother. And I think, we know there's been sort of ups and downs recently, but I think this is a really special moment for him. And I know his father, will have been supporting this decision, and I think his brother too. So I'm really pleased that he's going to be in uniform.
And we've got a real insight into, what it means to the grandchildren, because we've heard already, Prince William, Prince Harry, they've spoken about their grandmother since she passed away. But we've just had a statement this evening from Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, and they say, we've not been able to put much into words since you left us all. There have been tears and laughter, silences and chatter, hugs and loneliness, and a collective loss for you, our beloved Queen and our beloved Granny. And they speak about the moments they spent picking heather and raspberries, marching soldiers, teas, comfort, joy. You get a real sense of the divide, really, don't you? The Queen, having your Queen as a grandmother, but also the very personal family connection there.
I think that's what we've seen in each of the tributes that have come every day since, from the children and the grandchildren. You see there, you can really picture the Queen giving them their teas, doing marching soldiers with them, picking raspberries and heather. It's the sort of behind the crown image you get, particularly from the grandchildren. And I think that really speaks to the really moving scene we're going to see at 6 o'clock this evening. That is an incredibly sweet personal tribute, and especially the bit at the end where they say, we're really happy you're back with Grandpa.
I know, exactly. It's very difficult for any family at a time like this when you've lost somebody so close to you, but to do this in the full glare of the world's media, and we've got these 8 grandchildren who are now going to stand around their grandmother's coffin in full view. It's hard to imagine what that must be like for them.
I'm particularly thinking of the youngest, Viscount 7. I mean, it's just going to be I mean, I know he'll rise to the occasion. I think it'll be less difficult for William and Harry. I mean, they're probably much more used to it. They are much more used to this. But I think the fact they're all together, I think that's what's so wonderful about tonight, is that all the grandchildren, I believe they've asked for this, and the King gave his blessing. So that's what makes it so special. They want to pay this tribute to their grandmother, and to see them all together. I'm just trying to imagine what it might be like at the moment behind the scenes as they're all encouraging each other, and particularly the youngest. So, I think it's just so special.
As Prince Edward's son, who is the youngest, I think his two children are 18 and 14 years old, and actually have been exposed to a lot less of this, haven't they? The full glare of publicity.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, it will be hard for them, but the family will rally round. I mean, they're like any other family, so they'll look after each other, and they'll make sure they're fully prepared, properly briefed. I mean, the family's very good at planning things and getting ready for state occasions, and so, yeah, I'm really confident that they'll rise to the occasion, as I said.
And what about the people who will be passing through Westminster Hall at this very moment? Because they really have waited. I've spoken to people who've been in that queue 13, 14 hours today, and they're only in there for 5 minutes, but there will be some people who see that moment of history as well.
It's extraordinary. I was watching the vigil last night, and I actually was watching some of the people that were filing past, and they just gazed in complete astonishment to see the King and his siblings standing vigil, and I think to see the future King with his brother and his cousins is going to be an equally astonishing moment for them.
Well, let's go inside Westminster Hall, because we're expecting Prince William, Prince Harry and their cousins to mount their vigil in just a moment. So let's go back to Petrock, who is in Westminster Hall.
The Orb and Sceptre Commission for the coronation of Charles II in 1661 sit on top of the coffin, with the imperial state crown remade for the coronation of the Queen's father in 1937. Over 3,000 gems, one that stands out, the blue Stuart sapphire, the jewel thought to have been smuggled abroad by James II when he fled England, only returned in the 19th century during the reign of George IV. Well, a few of those filing into Westminster Hall now may have just picked up the fact that they are going to share their time here with the Queen's grandchildren. But none can have had any idea of the unusual nature their moment of respectful pilgrimage would take when they joined the queue hours ago. So we will see standing vigil the Prince of Wales, the Duke of Sussex, the Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, Zara Tyndall, skilled equestrian, former BBC Sports Personality of the Year, Brother Peter Phillips, who was the Queen's first grandchild, and Lady Louise Windsor, who's just started her studies at St Andrews University, where the Prince of Wales also studied and met his wife, and her brother James, Viscount Severn, aged just 14, the Queen's youngest grandson. Current watch being taken by officers of the Welsh Guard, along with His Majesty's bodyguard of the Honourable Corps of Gentlemen-at-Arms and the yeomen of the Guard. Interestingly, earlier on today here, they were joined by members of the Royal Company of Archers, the monarch's bodyguard in Scotland, an organisation that dates back to the middle of the 17th century when it was founded as an archery club. In a second now. There we go. The stick. The sand ricocheting off the stone of the floor here in Westminster Hall. And in just a moment we should see the 8 royal cousins, the Queen's grandchildren, coming to stand vigil in front of her coffin. A brief pause of these people filing past as the royal party takes up its position. Prince of Wales, greeting his brother and his cousins, down the stairs in the north corner of Westminster Hall. Three more taps, a signal to move forward. Cousins will stop again, wait further instruction to mount the catafalque. Prince of Wales taking his position at the head of the coffin. And in just a moment, this royal vigil by the Queen's grandchildren will begin. end of the royal vigil by the Queen's grandchildren here at Westminster Hall. Prince of Wales and the Duke of Sussex wearing the uniform of the Blues and Royals. Prince of Wales served in the regiment before he became an RAF pilot. Duke of Sussex reached the rank of captain and served 2 tours in Afghanistan. Duke given special permission to wear his uniform at this vigil by his father. And you probably spotted the Earl and Countess of Wessex looking on from the side as their children stood with their cousins, a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old, mourning their beloved grandmother. Familiar faces this evening, including that of the heir to the throne, but also faces we see very rarely. Viscount 7 Lady Louise Windsor, Zara Tyndall and Peter Phillips, who don't have official titles and have chosen to lead essentially private lives. The Duke of Sussex now living in California, but tonight here to honour his beloved grandmother. The princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, both working outside the palace, but also serving as royal patrons to charities operating in spheres including medicine, music, education and animal conservation. What must it have been like to have shared your grandmother with the nation? Peter Phillips, 44, the Queen's oldest grandson, has said she was an inspirational person throughout his life. The Duke of Sussex, in his tribute, spoke of his dual relationship with her. First, childhood memories of early meetings, and then as a young army officer, encountering her as his commander-in-chief. Once again this evening, a very public act of private mourning, which it feels that we've been privileged to witness. Her Majesty the Queen's grandchildren standing vigil to their grandmother.